This is NASCAR Coast to Coast. 60 minutes of NASCAR local and regional racing talk, interviews, and opinions. Here's Kyle, Rickey, and Buddy Long.
Coming up, we chat with one of NASCAR's newest winners in the Wheelin' All-American Series and a Drive for Diversity Combine participant. Modified Racing's Ironman will stop by to recap his 2015 season and preview 2016. And the NASCAR Mexico Series prepares for a doubleheader this weekend in the capital city. Welcome to this week's edition of NASCAR Coast to Coast for Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015. Kyle, Rickey, and Buddy Long with me here on this Tuesday afternoon as we talk NASCAR regional and weekly racing. And unfortunately, Buddy, as far as race results are concerned, not a lot to talk about except for a couple of Halloween spooktaculars. But other than that, a lot of the racing is about done.
Yeah, but I wanted to back up to when you were doing a preview on Mexico. Did you watch any of the Formula One race on Sunday?
I did.
I was sitting there trying to think, is that the same track that we went to? And boy, have they done a lot of improvements to that racetrack.
Yeah, obviously the Formula One competed there this past weekend for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I think it was like 23 years or something since they've been in Mexico.
Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez.
Very good.
And that is where the NASCAR Mexico Series will run this weekend, a doubleheader. But you're right. I was trying to figure out where we stood.
Yeah.
And it was hard to figure it out. So busy show here today as we begin to wind things down for the 2015 season. Of course, the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West remains their championship battle remains alive and well going into Phoenix next week. A race that can be heard right here on the Motor Racing Network next Thursday afternoon in the Valley of the Sun. 3 more races in Mexico, and we're done for the year.
Yeah, some very tight point battles still left to decide because the chase is on in Mexico. You mentioned they go to Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Spanish was never my good. I made Spanish 1 and 2. When I got to 3, I petered out. I sat under a tree my senior year, and actually, you know what? I cheated on my Spanish exam because you had to write a story. Yeah. So I went into a resource center, and I went through a dictionary and got all the words and wrote it in the back inside cover of the book that you were allowed to use, which was the dictionary. So we had a proctor in there, which was our principal of high school, Catholic high school, was a brother. And every time he kind of went past me up towards the front, I'd go to the back of the book, and I got a C on that.
There you go.
I worked on it, and I still got a C on that deal.
Ruben Garcia Jr. leads by 4 points over Ruben Ravello. Erwin Vences is third. Homaro Richards is fourth, all very close in the championship. Rafael Martinez rounds out the top 5. Not 1 but 2 races this weekend at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. On the show today, a young lady will join us for the first time. Picked up her very first career win in a super late model last week at Tucson Speedway in Arizona. Mariah McGriff, participant in the Drive for Diversity Combine last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, and a very famous grandfather.
Oh, actually, yes. And Herschel McGriff, if you followed racing for a long time, that goes back to the days of the old NASCAR Winston West Series. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, and we've talked to a lot of the drivers out on the West Coast, of course, Tony McRae has her dad, Rick McRae, who's a big part of her deal. A lot of the K&N East, or should say West drivers, have people like Bill Schmidt or different names from the past in Winston West Racing that are crew chiefs for them now on the K&N Pro Series West, so it's still cool. But I think Herschel's been close to being on the ballot or being considered for the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Yeah. He's getting closer, and I would say here in the next few years you're going to see Herschel in there.
And I think he's in every motorsports and sports Hall of Fame on the West Coast.
Yeah,
so,
I bet.
It's only a matter of time before his name really makes a big impact here on the East Coast in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. We'll talk to his granddaughter coming up here in a little bit. Mariah has done very well. It's been a busy couple of weeks. She won an endurance race in Portland, competed in the Combine, and won her first super late model race all within about 10 days. So we'll talk to her about that coming up here in a little bit. Ted Christopher will join us, another one of these modified drivers that always seems to stay busy up in the Northeast, competes at all the different racetracks and on all the different modified tours, and we'll kind of rehash the season with him from his perspective coming up here in a few minutes.
You're listening to me too much because you're getting tongue-tied. Do I make you nervous today for some reason? No, and you know, when you look at the Wheelin' All-American standings this year, Teddy is just the Iron Man. Mm-hmm. He finished 8th this year, and as we mentioned last week, it was one of the most competitive seasons on the NASCAR Wheelin' All-American Series. But when you look at the breakdown of races, again, I think Lee Pulliam ran the most, Ryan Preece the second most, Teddy was right there like third most with 42 races this year. And then it's a distance back to the fourth place guy, as far as the amount of races that they ran. I mean, Teddy's just the Iron Man. Yep. He didn't win as much this year, but still just had a very good season.
And it couldn't have been an easy year for him on the modified tour, having to swap rides halfway through the season. Started the year in one car, finished the year in another car, and missed a few races in between. Obviously not easy, finishing 13th in points. We'll talk to him about that here coming up and see what 2016 may lie for him here coming up in a little bit. And Trevor Huddleston will also join us. Another new name to NASCAR Coast to Coast. Love talking to a lot of these young drivers for the first time. Hopefully he's not the final late model champion at Irwindale Speedway, but it was a big year for him at Irwindale. Picked up the championship in the late model stock car division. We'll talk to him about that and his plans on maybe moving up through the ranks, very similar to what we have seen with Ryan Partridge in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. Irwindale is a track that we covered every week here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Tony McRae, we mentioned her a few moments ago. She was one of Trevor's chief rivals at that track for the better part of the year. Lance Wilson, Luis Martinez Jr., some of the other ones that went out there. But, we've been kind of dodging this one, hoping that something would happen during the course of the year that might change the future of Irwindale Speedway. We talked about it a few weeks ago. We looked at the upcoming schedule. The drag race part of it still looked like it was busy into 16, but on the oval side, we didn't see a whole lot of activity. So hopefully he can clarify that, and hopefully it's some type of ray of hope.
Absolutely. Hopefully one of the nicest short tracks in the country, wide, sweeping banking, provides great 2, 3, 4 wide racing very comfortably all the way around the place. And hopefully we'll be talking about Irwindale next year. Trevor will join us coming up to talk about his championship. A really cool tidbit on Trevor. He was featured on the Disney Channel a couple of years ago. I'm trying to think of on the Disney HD, a piece about his career in, at the time, Bandoleros.
Oh, so, really? Yeah. Really? Okay.
So we'll talk to him about that in just a moment. And remember, the last time the Disney Channel did a piece on a race car driver, she did some pretty big things and is still doing some pretty amazing things, and Erica Ender-Stevens.
Oh, that's true.
So they did a movie on her. She's off winning championships, picking up her second Pro Stock championship this past weekend. More on that on tomorrow's edition of The Straight Line here on MRN.com. But when we come back from this break, we go back to the West Coast and talk to Mariah McGriff. Picked up a big win this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago, at the Tucson Speedway in Arizona. She'll join us in a moment.
NASCAR Coast to Coast will be right back on MRN.com.
Dale Jr. here. I wear Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans for any occasion. With new styles and great fits, you'll look good and feel comfortable anytime, anywhere.
Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans are built with a U-shaped construction, so they give you more room where you need it. And their 4-way flex technology moves with you for all-day comfort.
In the garage or out and about, Wrangler knows the ins and outs of comfort. Wrangler, real comfortable jeans.
Need fantasy racing advice on picking your team for the upcoming Sprint Cup race? Motor Racing Network's fantasy experts are here to help you with the inside line.
I like the fiery Brad Keselowski, and here's why.
Join Tyler Burnett and Robbie Mays every Thursday on the Inside Line for in-depth analysis to give you a leg up on the competition.
I'm really curious to see if they can continue that dominance.
The Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show, Thursdays in the Media Center at MRN.com.
This is NASCAR Whelen All-American Series driver Kimmy Rivet, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to Kyle and Buddy.
All right, thank you very much, Kimmy. Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on MRN.com, a show we do every Tuesday here on the Motor Racing Network, talking NASCAR regional and weekly racing. And a driver that's been in the spotlight, at least recently on the West Coast, joins us now on the guest line, Mariah McGriff. Welcome to the show. It's been and Buddy and I talked about it before the break, it's been a big, 2.5 weeks for you and your career?
Oh, yes, it has been. Very busy, too.
Let's walk us through, let's talk about the Super Late Model race first. I was able to watch it online last week after it was posted. A great field of cars there at Tucson Speedway, as there is every week. Talk about that night for you. I saw one of your tweets about winning your first pole earlier in the night and then being able to cap it all off with your very first checkered flag.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of motivation going into it from everything that had happened the week prior. And so my brother had actually come from North Carolina to come and help us for the race, which he does a lot of the races if he can. And we ended up going out. We did a ton of changes in the practices, and then got my first pole, so that was really exciting. And then we had a couple issues in the quick six, and I didn't finish the quick six, but we got that stuff fixed, and then went out, started with a 4 invert, and I think by lap 2 or 3, I believe I was leading, and I led most of it, besides maybe 10 or 15 laps, even though we had 4 or 5 cautions.
And, of course, you've been a part of the Drive for Diversity Combine, the most recent one that just took place here at the Langley Speedway in Hampton, Virginia. There were so many different parts of that combine. I mean, driving is just one part of it. There's strength and agility courses in challenges that you guys have at nearby Hampton College. Through all of that, what was the most challenging part of the combine for you, if any?
I would actually say the most challenging was the fact that I have always been very involved in the background work of when it comes to crewing. I helped my dad and my brother build my super late model from the ground up. I was crew on my grandpa's K&N West car for 4 years when he did all the road courses. And I've always really enjoyed that, and that's where I originally started off doing everything in racing when I wasn't capable of driving financially. So that was the hardest part, is going there, not knowing any of the crew, and then having to kind of stand back and watch instead of being able to be hands-on. Was
this your first time at the Combine?
It was my first year at the Combine, yes.
What did you take away from it? You mentioned you had to stand back and watch. I'm assuming you probably learned a lot while doing that.
Yeah, there was definitely a learning process for it. The one thing is that driving is just a small portion of it, with the fact that there's so much media that you have to do these days, and fitness and everything, which everything I really enjoy doing when it comes to the background stuff and not just the driving, because that's the way that I've lived my whole life, being from a racing background. I understand all of that, and I've had to do all of that my whole life.
And, of course, having the McGriff name, the last name, that puts a little bit more pressure on you to I guess, follow in some very large footsteps. Your grandfather, Herschel, has done a tremendous job. I grew up watching Winston West racing, so I enjoyed it. So, obviously, we're all hoping that the Herschel one day gets into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Was this something that you always aspired to do? I know you mentioned you've talked a lot about being a member of the crew and being kind of behind the scenes, but was driving always something that you aspired to?
Yes. From the time I was a young girl, I was always inspired to do it. I was mostly around when my dad was heavily into racing. My grandpa, when I was little, wasn't so much around where I could be hands-on with that until I got into my early teen years. But I worked for a lot of years to convince my parents to let me get into go-karting, and I finally split the cost with my dad when I was 13 years old and bought my first go-kart for a road course here in Tucson, and that's where I won 3 of my championships. But I always wanted to do that. It just took many years for me to do it. And now you look, and a lot of these kids are starting off at 5 years old in go-karts, and I'm like, man, I was like 8 years behind when it comes to that.
You mentioned you started in karts when you were 13. Bring us through your progression to where you are now in a super late model, and then when you get to that point, we want to know where you want to be, say, 5 years from now.
So I started off in go-karts, road course, when I was 13, and I still do that when I have the time to do it. I originally started off in tag junior, and then moved up to tag senior, and then shifters. And in between, I also did some dirt karting here at a local track in a clone class, won a few races there. And then when I was 17, we started building my super late model, and originally we built it for the SRL tour. And then when financial situations didn't work out, we just decided to turn it into a super, and Tucson Speedway just happened to open up that next year. So we finished my super late model, and we started racing full-time here in Tucson. I also did Evergreen and the Bull Ring a few different times. Within 5 years, I would hope to see myself in a higher level like the East or even ARCA or up into trucks, because I've always liked to do stuff with trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, not just one. And I also won Rookie of the Year the first year I was racing my super late model too.
So she's well traveled and
She is.
she's very young. Okay, if you're
But
running,
then I also road course too. I met my
there you
boyfriend
go.
when I was 18, and he got me into the road racing scene. And then we actually won the 8-hour endurance race at Portland International Raceway on October 17th. So the 2 days before the combine started, I was in Portland. We did an 8-hour endurance race in a Porsche. Won that. We're the first team to actually win it with a female co-driver since it started in 1976. And we're hoping to run the 25 Hours of Thunder Hill in December too.
well, she makes me tired.
Busy.
Very
Busy,
tired.
busy.
If you run a shifter card, that's going to be a lot of good experience for you. If you ever run shifters, 2 cycles in karting, that is so great. That's a great preparatory deal to get you up to another level of motorsports for sure. Through all of this,
I think it's actually more physical too.
It is, and actually here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, the sprint track that they have in the infield, because of the I guess the settling of the ground, because it's built, that end of the racetrack's built on a landfill, so it settles. So when you came across the start-finish line and you got into turn number 1, which basically is about where the tunnel is coming through for traffic, you went over a hump. And the second you went over that hump past the start-finish line, you had to grab a gear, change it, and turn the cart real quick. And I'm just sitting there in awe of drivers that are able to do that. And I'm thinking that's got to be such a great tool for them as they move up to the next level. Mariah, the one question I have for you, I know you have a lot of people in your family, obviously, that have great racing lineage. Is there anybody else that you've raced against or raced with that you've kind of latched on to, that you've kind of been inspired by, that has kind of helped you, that's tutored you along a little bit?
Well, locally, originally Ron Norman was really helpful to me, and most recently it's been Chuck Wares, which actually won the track champion this year here at Tucson. They're mostly the local figures, but on the West Coast, when I first started, one of the people that was very influential to me and helped me actually too was Bill McAnally and Derek Thorne. I've spent a lot of one-on-one time with Bill McAnally and tested in his cars a few times. I talk with him a lot. And then I've also tested with Derek Thorne when he was working full-time for Junior, when Junior was still over here on the West Coast, before he was Matt Crafton's crew chief. And also Ron Eaton from the Northwest, because he's been around for many years and still is. And he helped me my first few races actually here at Tucson too.
Yeah, surrounding yourself with a lot of great people, a lot of very familiar names to us as far as short track racing is concerned on the West Coast. A lot of big races coming up. The season's far from finished over there in Tucson and on the West Coast in general. The King of the Hill 100 coming up this weekend. The Turkey Shootout coming up in a few weeks at the track. Will you be participating in any of these events?
We're talking about potentially participating in the Turkey Shoot, and then also the Chili Willy, which is in February, because those are two big races that a lot of people try to come to from out of town. So it's pretty good to have the background of racing at Tucson Speedway full time, and then also having big names come in that travel everywhere. So I'm excited to do Chili Willy again this year. I didn't get to do it this past year, but I did it the first year, and it's definitely a learning experience because of all the different people that come in.
That's what's been so cool when we look at Irwindale, we look at Tucson, the Bull Ring, Kern County Raceway Park. We've seen so many drivers from all these different tracks, even though it's still a little bit of a distance to get to them, have been participating, which has kept the level of competition up very well. And so great to see Tucson, that was a NASCAR track back many years ago, be back on the Wheelin' All-American calendar. And I guess you guys were tickled when you saw they were a member of the Wheelin' All-American Series this year.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was great to see that Tucson became NASCAR sanctioned again, because that's a huge thing when it comes to spectators and when it comes to bringing in more cars, because that NASCAR name pulls in a lot of different people that have followed NASCAR for years, and it's not just a track that's there by itself anymore.
So it's obviously you're keeping yourself busy while awaiting the results of the D4D Combine, but let's go both sides. If it happens, obviously you know that that you got a very busy year next year. If by some chance it doesn't, and we certainly hope it does for you, what are the plans, or what are the alternate plans for 2016 for you?
Well, if it does happen, I would definitely move back there and take full advantage of that. And if it doesn't, then I'll just keep doing what I'm doing with road racing and with the short track stuff, especially at Tucson Speedway, and then focus on seeing if I can get accepted again next year to potentially see what the plans would be for 2017. I'm also a nanny full-time, so I take care of a young boy, and he has a sister on the way, so that keeps me busy, and plus I'm a nursing student hoping to get accepted for spring if I don't move back east.
Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on in the life of Mariah McGriff. Mariah, thanks for joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. I know it's been a busy couple of weeks for you with the road racing event at Portland, the Drive for Diversity Combine here on the East Coast, and obviously the big win last week at Tucson Speedway in Arizona. It was fun to watch online, an emotional victory lane down there for you on the front straightaway, but it had to be a great way to cap the regular season at Tucson.
It was a great way to end it, that's for sure.
All right, Mariah, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see more of you in 2016.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Mariah McGriff joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, and it would be cool to see her get accepted and get a K&N East deal or a late model deal with Rev Racing here over on the East Coast. Or maybe one day, you never know, and again, finances dictate a lot of it, move up to the K&N West Series over on the West Coast.
Absolutely, which is a question I'm sure we both have for Trevor Huddleston, because we've had it for Ryan Partridge and so many other drivers in the West to see. Obviously, they would like to do it if finances work out, but it's also good to see another thing. We've talked about the increase of young talent in the West, but also the increase of female drivers. I mean, it goes back a few years when we started the program. Hannah Newhouse has been a big fixture out there. Nicole Behar obviously is doing very well. And now here comes Mariah. So, I mean, it's good to see the female talent on the Western side also developing as well.
I believe you have Kaylee Barker over at the Vegas Bull Ring, who also participated in the Combine. So, yeah, the ladies are making a name for themselves over on the West Coast. When we come back, we're going to talk to, I guess we called him earlier, Modified's Iron Man. He's been around for a while, and he's raced at every racetrack and in every different tour that you could possibly run in the Modifieds. It was a busy 2015 for Ted Christopher, and we'll talk to him about it when we come back.
Coming back with more of NASCAR Coast to Coast, it's Kyle, Rickey, and Buddy Long right after this.
Football starts this Sunday, but at DraftKings.com, it's already time for the big game. $10 million in prizes are up for grabs in the biggest one-week fantasy football contest ever. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Use promo code 360 at DraftKings.com to play free for your shot at the $2 million top prize in this Sunday's Millionaire Maker event. That's 360 for free entry now at DraftKings.com.
Miss any of MRN's programs? Find the archives and podcasts of all MRN's original programming in the Media Center on MRN.com, or you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. Listen to, download, or subscribe to MRN Motorsports Monday, Winged Nation, The Straight Line, NASCAR Coast to Coast, Fast Food, Throwback Thursday, NASCAR Live, MRN 360, Pod Tracks, MRN Tailspin, NASCAR Today, and Ned Jarrett's World of Racing. MRN programs available on demand.
Hey everyone, this is NASCAR modified driver Keith Rocco, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to Kyle and Buddy.
Keith joining us on the show just a week ago here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Welcome back on this Tuesday afternoon. Joining us now, a driver that Keith had to fend off most of the season at the New London Waterford Speed Bowl and at modified tracks around the Northeast, Ted Christopher. Ted, welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast. Want to
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, want to catch up with you. You had a busy year, 8th in the national standings. You competed full-time at about every track up in the Northeast and on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. I know there were some challenges there. How would you characterize your 2015 season?
Probably about a C. It was probably a B+ at Waterford, maybe towards an A, but Stafford, I wasn't that good. We had, I don't know, we just couldn't get our car going that good there for some reason. And I didn't race Thompson. Well, twice we raced Thompson, the beginning of the year and the end of the year. We didn't race it during the week, but it was all right. But you have years like that one. You know, I've been doing it a long time, so sometimes it's real good, sometimes it isn't.
And, well, you got to run against the best of the best every night. When you're out at Stafford Motor Speedway, we've talked about it so many times this year with the group of SK Modified drivers that you have so much Wheel and Modified talent that's running there, so it's a good tune-up for the next Wheel and Modified Tour race. But You're right, New London Waterford Speed Bowl. Kyle and I were watching that all season long. What a great battle for the points right down to the final night.
Oh yeah, Keith and I had a great battle all year long. It's most of the time we would always joke that whoever got to the first was usually the person that was going to win. But I had fun racing with him this year. It was a good time. We had a great car there. I was happy that we could finally get some wins going at that track.
Want to talk more about Waterford here in a moment, but want to touch on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. For you, 13th in points. Doesn't really say how the season went for you. 2 races where you didn't compete. You started the season with one team, with the Caton family. You ran for Our Motorsports in the second half of the year. How difficult was that or this season for you, having to switch teams and miss events?
It was pretty difficult. I started out with Bob again. We ran good the following year, and this year just things weren't clicking. And money end of it's always a big thing in the racing game, and I had pretty much had enough of spending too much, so I stopped and concentrated more on just a weekly series at Waterford. It was fun racing there. So, as everybody says, if it's not fun and you spend a lot of money, it's not fun at all.
And the one thing that we noticed when we looked at the Wheeling All-American standings, and it was one of the most competitive seasons we have seen so far with so many drivers from different tracks being involved. But again, as Kyle alluded to, you're one of the Ironmen of the modified series. And when you're running up in New England and you have the ability to run an SK car on Friday at Stafford and either a New London deal or running at Riverhead on a Saturday, wherever direction drivers go, then running Thompson occasionally, and the Tour, that racks up a lot of races. But you were third on the list this year as far as most races participated in at 42, so it doesn't look like you're trying to slow down any.
No, I mean, it's a lot less than when I ran 98 one year. So, but I would have probably liked to race Thompson if I could. I didn't realize how good we were doing at Waterford in the national standing deal, and I think if we got some races in at Thompson, we could have moved up a few more spots. But next year's another year, and maybe we'll do that.
Let's talk about Waterford Speed Bowl this season. We talked to Keith last week about it extensively, about just the new management team that was put into place at the beginning of the season at that racetrack this year. What are your thoughts as far as what you saw there as a competitor? Bruce Beamer obviously bought the facility at the beginning of the season. Sean Monahan came in to help run the place as the general manager. Just your overall impressions 1 year now in the books for Mr. Beamer.
It was great having Bruce Beamer, purchase the facility. He's done nothing but great things for it. I think 2016 is going to be even better. He's a great guy to deal with. He's definitely, one thing he is very solvent. He has a lot of businesses in Connecticut here. I think money is not an object with him. Not an object, but he has good funding behind himself, and that definitely helps with the racetrack. The years previous with the other owners, things were never really that solvent. At the end of the year, was always wondering if the place was going to open or not. And I think now it's in good hands, and it has a great future ahead of it. He has a lot of great plans for the track, and it's fun racing there. A
great facility, and one that Kyle tells me about constantly that I have not gotten to, and I'm going to get to, and you're going to take me there one of these years. Talking about this time last year, silly season cranked up big time for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. It was a game of chess. Ryan Preece started the deal going with the Ed Partridge team, and after that it was just a chess game with so many drivers changing so many different rides, but one of the most competitive seasons that we have seen on this Wheel and Modified Tour, and the car count was very strong. Your assessment, and I know it wasn't the season that you wanted to have, but looking at as an overview of the series for the year in 2015, your assessment of everything.
It definitely had a lot of car counts. I think they still need to do more as far as paying better at a lot of the tracks. But they definitely had good car count, that's for sure. It was a very competitive season, again, between the, like 3 guys up towards the front at the end of the year. And it's interesting what's going to happen next year. There's, I think now the 6 says they might not be running because Ryan's going to be running some other things. A few other teams might not be running. It'd be interesting to see what the outlook is in 2016 when it starts out.
And the schedule. This year, 14, 15 races with the All-Star race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Years ago, when the series first started, it was, 20, 23, 24 races. Is the number now where the economy is and with the the pressure a lot of these teams have in getting to the track every week. Is 14, 15 a good number for the current state of where that series is?
I think if you're going to run 15, what's the difference if you run 20 or
Right.
24 or whatever like that? Most of those teams, a lot of the teams are pretty well funded up towards the front, full-time guys and everything. So I don't think it bothers them. It's always nice to have more races, but it's better. I think it's better to have races that pay well than it is to have a high number of races. And I think if they could get more towards that, that would probably be a better situation for the tour. Pretty stagnant as far as money goes. As far as a lot of races have actually stopped and have not paid as much in the past years. And we have those flash races, they call them, and they started those, and they still have those. And that's a pretty low purse to race for.
And it sounds, just reading that there could be a couple of extra racetracks or different racetracks that you could be going to next year. I'm not going to divulge what that is because I think right now it's kind of speculation. It hasn't really been put out there. I mean, there could be a couple of different facilities. What we've noticed with you over the years, obviously you've had a regular tour ride, but we've also seen you in stints in Joe Brady's car, going down to New Smyrna during the World Series of Asphalt Racing, doing very well down there, having runs in the Northeast. We know that we saw your name on the list for pre-entries for the North-South Shootout this weekend at Concord. Hopefully the weather agrees. We still going to see you down here this weekend?
No, unfortunately I'm not. Somebody was supposed to come through with some sponsorship for down there, and it didn't come through. So I am not headed down there this weekend. And next week I got to have rotator cuff surgery, so my business has been so busy, and it's actually a good thing that I'm not going there because I'm trying to catch up before I go in for surgery next week.
Yeah, so it might be better just to rest if that's the case. 2016, I know Buddy touched on it a moment ago, plans up in the air for the Modified Tour, but will we expect to see you back at Waterford Speed Bowl and Stafford Speedway and continuing to run full-time over on those facilities Friday and Saturdays?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to run that. If I don't have anything on the tour, I still have a couple tour cars myself. I may just run, New Hampshire's and Stafford, my home track, which I always like a lot. And if I don't have a full-time deal, I'll definitely run Waterford, try to run for the regional or national points deal, see as many points as I can accumulate in that, race Stafford, and then maybe shoot some races over at Thompson, too, to get enough races in.
It was fun to watch this year, especially with you and Keith and Tyler Chadwick and the rest of the crew at the New London Waterford Speed Bowl. Always enjoy to watch those events for the Modifieds. Thanks for joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, Teddy, and look forward to catching up with you here at the awards banquets here coming up in a couple of months.
All right, I appreciate it having me on, and anytime you need to come out again, give me a call. I always enjoy talking to you guys. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Ted Christopher joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, and another one of those drivers that's really busy, but he's been doing it a lot longer than most of the guys who we talk to.
And when you talk about what's happened with him, searching for another ride on the Whelen Tour, this is not the first time that's happened to him, and it wasn't that long ago that he ran into a similar situation. I think he ran the Joe Brady car for a little bit. He's been in Bowler's number 3 car here and there. Anything he gets in, he's done very well. But I was shocked because at not paying attention to the results of the last 2 tour races, and unfortunately I didn't realize that Mark Pennick, which was Rowan's dad, pretty much shut their team down, that they weren't going to be able to run tour races, or at least they weren't going to do it with his team. Rowan says that he's still going to try and defend his title in the SKs at Stafford on Friday night. Sounded like he could be another driver that we'll see on Saturdays at New London Waterford Speed Bowl. But things happen. It's that time of year where, it may not be anything specific about a series or whatever. Finances may have said, hey, look, we've been loving it. We just can't do it anymore. We might be able to do it on this level, but, that's another team or another driver that could be looking for a ride on the tour. And then Bill Park, I had noticed that he elected to retire as a car owner. He was another one that fielded cars for Ryan at Riverhead Raceway on Saturday nights.
Well, we'll see how it all shakes out here over the next couple of months and see who shows up at the Icebreaker at the start of the 2016 season. We'll talk with Trevor Huddleston in a moment, but first let's take a moment, get to know some of the stars of NASCAR's regional series a bit closer as we go off the wall. Austin Hill, what is your perfect pizza?
I'd say my perfect pizza is a Stevie B's pizza. It's in Georgia. I don't think they really have them up here in North Carolina. and it's a buffalo chicken pizza. It's kind of hot. It has a hot sauce on it with some grilled chicken. It's so good.
Kenzie Rustin, do you have any superstitions?
Not really any superstition. Well, kind of one. I don't like bone-in chicken at the racetrack. I feel like bone-in chicken is bad luck. I don't know why, but that's just one thing that I don't like. So, and then I have to chew gum when I race. That's really not a superstition. It's more of like a focus thing.
William Byron, what is your favorite word?
Probably, absolutely. It's pretty good word.
Justin Bonsignor, in school, your favorite and least favorite class? Gym doesn't count.
What about lunch? I liked English, hated math, and then I was dumb enough to try and become a mechanical engineer, so it didn't work out too well.
NASCAR Coast to Coast will be right back on MRN.com.
Motor Racing Network has always been your source for motorsports coverage when you couldn't be at the track. Now, MRN is even more accessible with the brand new MRN app, available on your iPhone or Android device right now. This free app delivers all the latest motorsports news and schedules, locates nearby MRN stations, streams your favorite programs, and lets you interact with the MRN team on social media. Search MRN in the App Store or on Google Play. It's the Motor Racing Network at your fingertips, and it's available right now.
Stay up to date with the latest news from the NASCAR Garage weekdays on NASCAR Today, midday.
A lot of things that are happening that I believe will definitely be better, but everybody's going to get better. This is a constantly evolving sport.
Hear from the drivers and teams as they chase the 2015 championship trophy.
I'm not looking back at all. I'm looking forward, and I'm focused on what we've got coming up.
NASCAR Today, midday on the Motor Racing Network, your source for the latest NASCAR news and information.
This is NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour driver Ryan Preece, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to you, Kyle and Buddy.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan, who stopped me in Martinsville the other day and said, I'm running the next 4 Sprint Cup races, and I'm living in Charlotte for the next month. When can we finally do this in person?
How much money did he have?
So, yeah, thanks.
I'm kidding.
so I said, we got a couple of weeks left. We'll see if we can work you in.
Well, I'm assuming... Well, no, let's see. Texas is Sunday.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming he's not running the North-South Shootout now?
No.
He's not.
He's running the Sprint Cup race.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, okay.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And Phoenix and Homestead. So hopefully we'll get him in studio here in the next couple of weeks. Joining us now on the guest line, Trevor Huddleston, the 2015 NASCAR Whelen All-American Series late model champion at the Irwindale Speedway in California. And Trevor joins us for the first time here at NASCAR Coast to Coast. Welcome to the show, Trevor, and congratulations. It seemed like a real solid season for you and your team out there, winning the championship by 34 points over Mike Johnson at Irwindale.
Yeah, definitely. It was a great year. I just want to thank you guys for having me on the show. It's a real honor.
All right, you can't say it. You can't say it. Kyle said you can't say it. You can't say that you're the last late model champion at Irwindale because you guys are racing there in 2016. Go ahead and tell us. Tell us the good news.
For sure. Irwindale ain't going nowhere. We're hoping for a good, long 2016 season and hoping for many more after that. This 2015 was a great year. Fan count was great, so just got to keep it going, and hopefully Irwindale will stay alive for a lot more racing time.
Fan count was great. It looks like the car counts were solid in all of the divisions that competed there on a regular basis. How would you kind of stack up the competition from your seat in the late model class, the guys that you competed against week in and week out?
Oh, man, the competition is just great. Half the people I'm racing with were my dad's competitors back in his day. So racing with all the veterans, it's just real great to learn from them, and as well as all the new kids that are around my age. The competition each week, somebody comes out there and they're just as fast as you, and they're better than they were the week before. So, great competition.
Not only winning the Irwindale Championship, but also the championship for the state of California. And at first, before I even clicked on the page on NASCAR Home Tracks, I was thinking Eric Richardson was going to be right behind you. It was going to be a tight battle because Eric had the championship at Kern County Raceway Park. He had 12 victories this year, but I was kind of surprised in one sense, but I think Kyle just hit it on the head. With car count, I know Kern County's still kind of growing a little bit and trying to build their base up, but the top 7 drivers, I believe, are actually the top 6 in the California state standings. All were from Irwindale Speedway, which says a lot about the car count and the success that track has had.
Yeah, definitely. We were pretty fortunate. I don't think we ever had one race where the car count wasn't below 20, or below 20. So we were real fortunate there. Like you said, Kern's still working their way up. So hopefully within the next year or two, they have the same car count as Irwindale does. It'll be even closer of a battle.
Let's talk about how you got into motorsports, and it wasn't that long ago. I believe your first year was, 2009 in Bandoleros, and then it's progressed from there.
Yeah, pretty much. I started in Bandoleros, in 2009 when I was 12 years old, and worked my way up to the ranks. Started driving one of Jeff Schrader's from Race Car Factory called an S2, and since then I've worked my way up into late models, and it's been a family thing. My grandpa, Orrin Prosser, was a multi-time champion and winner all around the West Coast. And it just kind of evolved into my dad, and now it's my turn.
Now, I know we had a light moment at the very beginning. We were kind of teasing you about not being the last Irwindale champion. But seriously, have you heard anything? What's the current status from what you've heard, from what drivers have heard about Irwindale? We're looking at the website. We're not really seeing next year's schedule for the track. The stock car track, we're seeing drag racing information, but can you kind of enlighten us on what's been happening out there for us?
Yeah, definitely. Well, from what I've heard, going all the rumors, the tracks, or the people who own the track, have to tell the people who run the track that they have to get out. And when they do that, they have 1 year to get out. So until that moment happens, we still have each year. So as long as they keep going and we don't hear any more information on the people who bought it, then each time we got another year and another year. So just hoping on that. So like you said, the website doesn't say it yet, but I've heard there's for sure a 2016 season.
Good news. So at least we have one more season.
Yes.
And hopefully more down the road at Irwindale Speedway. Again, a great short track in this country, and fun to watch racing there. Back when the Toyota All-Star Showdown was there, and they ran a lot of exhibition races there over the years. Good racetrack. I want to talk about, we mentioned it at the top of the show, and I was made fun of for bringing it up, but I'm a Disney fan, and you were featured a couple years ago on Disney XD as a younger athlete beginning to move up through the ranks of their particular sport, and obviously for you it's motorsports.
Yeah, definitely. That was a real cool experience. They came out to our shop and they filmed me, and basically they were just trying to help motivate kids at home, get out there and do what they love. It was pretty cool. It was also kind of funny. They wouldn't let me say the word race.
Really?
I'm a race car driver, and they wouldn't let me say the word race. But it was still a pretty cool experience. Really happy I was able to do that.
Okay, if you can answer the next question I have without using the word race, I'll be very impressed. You're kind of in the shadows of Auto Club Speedway in Fontana. I think a couple of years ago was out there doing a truck race, or it might have been an Xfinity Series race, and saw the signs for Irwindale, and I think that was the same weekend that the K&N Pro Series West guys were out at the racetrack. We ask this of all of our late model drivers that do so well out in the West. Is there that opportunity that could exist for you in the near future that could propel you up into the Touring Series ranks, or are you kind of happy with where you're at?
I'm definitely happy to be where I'm at, but I'm always looking for the next opportunity. I mean, that's my goal. I want to make it as far as I can. I'm pretty fortunate with everything I've gotten so far, but I'm definitely keeping my options open and looking to keep moving up.
Getting to know a lot of these young drivers on the show today. Earlier, we heard from Mariah McGriff. She's a nanny when she's not at the racetrack. She's also a nursing student. She has a lot going on. When you're not at the racetrack and wheeling your late model, what are you doing when you're outside the walls of the Irwindale Speedway?
That's a pretty easy one for me, too. If I'm not at Irwindale Speedway, I'm at a different track as a spectator. It's kind of funny. When I have our off weekend, generally people don't go to the racetrack, but that seems like all we do. We go to the dirt races, do all that. But other than that, I go to a full-time school at Moore Park College, as well as work full-time at the race shop. So, a lot of fun.
Sounds like our lives. When we're not at the racetrack working, we're at the racetrack spectating.
And
Exactly.
you have a problem with that in
No.
what category?
No, there's no problem
Okay.
with that.
No, I don't either. I don't either. And not to go in the what if category, and I'm kind of thinking about Kern County because that's the direction I was going today. But I did notice that there are a few drivers like Tony McRae, Lance Wilson, Luis Martinez Jr. that ran occasionally both Irwindale and Kern County. I know Kern's in Bakersfield, and you guys are pretty much around Fontana, the Ontario area. Conceivably for you, and say Irwindale does stay alive for another year, and we hope it does, have you looked to want to branch out and do both, or can you do both, or you just wanted to stick into the Irwindale deal?
Definitely would hope to branch out and do both just to get more seat time and experience with different tracks. It was a little hard this year because a couple of my teammates run in different series, so we were with them at other tracks. But definitely hoping to run both, just to get as much time in the car as I can.
Championship ended just about a month ago today, October 3rd, at Irwindale Speedway in California. What's the rest of your 2015 season look like? We know there's some big races left out at some of the short tracks on the West Coast. Should we anticipate you attending any of them?
Yeah, definitely. We actually just got off two big races. We ran a 10,000 to win race at Madera Speedway, and we were battling with Eric Holmes, who's K&N champion. Battled with him to the last lap for the win and ended up finishing second. And then the week right after that, we went out to the bull ring in Las Vegas for the annual Fall Classic, and we came home with a win from there. So pretty happy to do that. And then looking towards our last race, I think I'm going to jump into a Lucas Oil Modified and at the bull ring and see what I can do in that.
That's pretty cool. We talked to Mariah McGriff earlier, another driver from out on the western side of the country that's done very well in a very quick period of time. And we asked her, and as I'm going to ask you, some of the other drivers that are in your sport that you kind of lean on for advice, and she had a plethora of very solid Winston West names from the past, drivers that have run the West and done very good. What drivers do you find that you latch yourself onto and try to get a little bit more advice and experience from?
Oh, man. Yeah, there's a lot of people. I find rather than not them helping me outside the track, I find myself latching onto them on the track. Eric Holmes, he ran me a pretty clean race at Madera, and I just learned a lot about running hard with him, as well as Rip Michaels. He doesn't race anymore, but he is giving me a lot of great advice, as well as my dad. He's not a K&N champion, but he's a three-time champion at Irwindale Speedway. And, everything I know, learned from him. I'm sure he's got a couple tricks up the sleeve in case he gets back in the race car again, but he's taught me a lot.
And racing's been in your family for quite some time. I believe you're, a third-generation driver at this?
Yep, my grandpa, my dad, now me.
Wow.
So basically you said that when you're not at the racetrack, like we said, you're at the racetrack watching some dirt races. Have you ever slung any dirt?
Race, but I've definitely gone out to a speedway bike track and tested out a little Ford Focus Midget. That was a blast. Dirt's a whole different animal, but that was a lot of fun.
All right, Trevor. Thanks for joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Congratulations. A great season, 5 wins. Won the championship by 34 points over Mike Johnson. It seemed like a very competitive division out there at Irwindale, and hopefully we'll see you more in 2016, perhaps at some bigger and better events, maybe like the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West. You never know.
And if he calls us, or if we find out that track shut down next year, it better not, because we're coming after you. We want you back there for one more year and many more years to come.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys so much for having me on the show. Just want to thank everybody, Performance Napa Auto Care and High Point Racing, to give me where I'm at, and hope you guys have a good day.
You too. Trevor Huddleston joining us here, and I think he's right. They got to the folks that are running the facility need to let the people that own the facility know that it's no longer going to be a racing facility.
Right.
And you need a 1-year notice. I don't know how it all works, but I read something to that effect where, if they haven't been notified yet, well, we still got another calendar year where we can go racing.
Right. And that's encouraging, because that is not what I was expecting to hear from him. When he had answered us the first time, it was the rah-rah. It's like, yeah, we're going to be running. Or, heck or high water, we're going to be running. But it's like, okay, is that what you want to say, or
Right.
is that what's going to happen? And then sounds like it's looking pretty good.
And that means maybe another NASCAR Can-Am Pro Series West race there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was one of the great short track races for that series this season at Irwindale. Back to wrap things up here, coming up on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Coming back with more of NASCAR Coast to Coast, it's Kyle Rickey and Buddy Long right after this.
Dale Jr. here. I wear Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans for any occasion. With new styles and great fits, you'll look good and feel comfortable anytime, anywhere.
Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans are built with a U-shaped construction, so they give you more room where you need it. And their four-way flex technology moves with you for all-day comfort.
In the garage or out and about, Wrangler knows the ins and outs of comfort. Wrangler, real comfortable jeans.
If you haven't checked out MRN.com's exclusive online programming, you've missed a lot. MRN Motorsports Monday. Review and preview the NASCAR weekend. Wings Nation talk Wings Sprint Cars. The Straight Line. Give you the latest from the NHRA. NASCAR Regional, Local, and International Series on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Food at the track on Fast Food. And classic MRN races on Throwback Thursday. Exclusive original online motorsports talk on MRN.com.
This is NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour driver Bobby Santos, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to Kyle and Buddy.
Bobby, one of those drivers that have been very busy this year between the NASCAR ranks and the USAC ranks and everything in between. It'd be interesting to see what he does come 2016. Another driver that we always thought would get the opportunity that I think Ryan Preece is getting now in the NASCAR Sprint Cup level, and Preece had the opportunity to run some NASCAR Xfinity Series races last year. I think a lot of us expected that to happen to Bobby Santos maybe 5-6 years ago when he was just first breaking in and winning all the races that he was winning on the USAC Tour and on the NASCAR Tour.
Yeah, absolutely. And if weather works his way, he's one of the drivers that will come down for the North-South Shootout this weekend. I think running for Rob Fuller.
Yeah.
In the 15 car. But, yeah, he didn't have the season. I mean, you know, at the beginning of the year, for the last couple of years, he's been the name at Thompson or Stafford that's been the hot ticket, and even late in the year, and he just didn't surface this year like he had in the past, and that's just not like Bobby, and don't hold him down.
No.
He's coming.
Not a lot of action this past weekend. You mentioned the North-South Shootout. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Rick Clauser won the Pro Late Model feature. Bruce Bennett, the Superstock feature at New Smyrna Speedway in Florida. They will run until Christmas, I think. Their next event, the 50th Annual Governor's Cup, November 13th through the 15th, one of their bigger events of the season.
And our congratulations out to David Rogers. I believe he picked up yet another championship down in New Smyrna this year, so he's racked them up. You mentioned there was a Halloween Spectacular, $6,000 to win race at Kingsport Speedway in Tennessee. Chad Fincham, a driver that kind of broke away from a full-time status because he was a big fixture, I guess, in the Wheelin' All-American standings a year ago. Went back to a part-time deal. He picked up the win over Ronnie McCarty and Cress Van Dyke.
Riverhead Raceway on Long Island in New York announcing that they're adding an SK Light type of division for the 2016 season, something that we're seeing more and more short tracks in the Northeast do. Ever since Stafford developed this division, I believe it was 2003, 2004, where they came out with an SK Light race car, a cheaper way to go modified racing, and then you can use the same chassis to move up into the SK modified ranks. Seeing Riverhead jump on board and try to hopefully, and it'll take a couple of years to build that division, but in the long term, improve their NASCAR Wheelin' All-American Series full-blown modified division that runs every Saturday night.
Absolutely, and one of the drivers, I believe, that came, did the stepping stone process was Chase Dowling. He just got announced as the NASCAR Wheelin' Modified Tour Rookie of the Year. Had a very good season for him. Trey Hutchins, the second, I think, came away with the Southern Rookie of the Year honors. So congratulations to those two young drivers. Chase, one of the future hopefuls on the Wheelin' Modified Tour.
Other news as far as drivers in the NASCAR Wheelin' or NASCAR short track division, or car owners in this case, Ben Kennedy talked with him at the Martinsville Speedway over the weekend, running full-time for Red Horse Racing in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. We'll be running the NASCAR K&N West Race next week. First time that he's run a West race in 2 years, and the first time that he's going to be able to race against his current driver, Kaz Gralla.
There was a very important news item that came out just a week or so ago, and I think it just started, and that was, if I can find it on here, registration for the Miss Snowball Derby pageant open today. Are you going to enter?
I know. I'm good. Thank you, though. But
no, they heard about 2 weeks ago about 56 entries for that event. Yep. And again, defending champion John Hunter Nemechek, who had a very good run at Martinsville in the Camping World Truck Series over the weekend. He is the defending champ. William Byron, K&N Pro Series East champion this year. He's also entered in that event, so it should be another good one.
Daniel Hemrick?
I wouldn't doubt it. I didn't see
in
the entry list. I just saw them saying 56 drivers, so those were the two that headlined it, but I guarantee Hemrick's in it.
I think Hemrick's in it. I think Kenzie's in it. I think she told me she's going to run a pro late model.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of familiar names to this show in that race weekend,
absolutely.
one of the greatest race weekends in short track racing in December to kick off the holiday season. Going to be fun. We mentioned at the top of the show, Ed Partridge considering shutting down his NASCAR Wheeling Modified team, depending on what Ryan Preece does. Eddie he's got a lot going on. He just purchased Riverhead Raceway and still unhappy with the way the season turned out on the Northern Modified Tour.
Yeah, and of course we're referring to the contact between Doug Coby and Ryan Preece in Turn 1 and 2 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. But you mentioned he does have a lot on his plate, so maybe that helps him to make that decision as he tries to keep Riverhead going.
Other than that, we're about done for short track racing this season. Hard to believe. Again, the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West race next week, next Thursday, from Phoenix International Raceway here on the Motor Racing Network. We'll talk more about it and preview it more next week here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Another fast hour, buddy.
Yeah, I think Kern County's running this weekend, the Ironman 125, November 7th for late models. That might be one of the only races running this week.
We'll talk about it next week. Want to thank Mariah McGriff, Ted Christopher, and Trevor Huddleston joining us here on the show. For the birthday boy, Robbie Mays on graphics, Craig Moore, our producer, Buddy Long. I'm Kyle Rickey. We'll see you next Tuesday here on MRN.com.
You've been listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast. Tune in next Wednesday at 1 Eastern for more talk from local tracks all over America. NASCAR Coast to Coast is also available on demand in the MRN.com Media Center or download from iTunes or Stitcher. NASCAR Coast to Coast is a production of the Motor Racing Network. All rights reserved.